In order to achieve this, now until now I just configured Sonar. So there are three things that I'm doing. Firstly, I'm asking a question called why you need Sonar. This is something that we answered. Second thing, how do you configure Sonar? In here, what I did is that firstly I created organization in Sonar. And I created a project in Sonar. Then I generated a Sonar token by going into my account, security, and then generated a Sonar token out here. Came into Azure Devops. So this is at Azure Devops out here. Went into organization settings, installed an extension called Sonar out here. So installed Sonar, went into project settings, established a service connection. I did all these things out here for the configuration out here as such. Now Sonar is ready. I want to use Sonar right now. So now I'm telling if Sonar needs to trigger whenever, or if Sonar needs to analyze your project whenever you have a pull request, you need to integrate it with the branch policies. So let's go back. Let's go into branches, and this is my branch. I'll look at the branch policies out here. It says require minimum number of reviewers. Then it has something called check for link work items, which we'll talk about. Then there is something called let's say check for comment resolution, limit merge types. Just scroll down. There is something called build validation. It's saying validate code by pre-merging the the build pull request and all that stuff, which means that you can add a pipeline here which triggers automatically whenever you have a pull request in place. Here what I'll do is I'll create a new pipeline. Very first I'll do a new pipeline creation. Pipeline should look same like this, similar like this. What I have here is restore, build, publish artifacts, and etc. Pipeline should look similar like this. So what I'll do is I'll come down to my first pipeline. I'll click on these three dots. I'll say clone. Make a copy of this pipeline. First build pipeline clone. I'll say this is validation pipeline. I just don't want artifact publishing in this pipeline because I'm not doing a continuous integration. So I'll remove this task. I did a right click, remove this task. Now I have three things: restore, build, and publish. With this, what I'll do right now, I'll say add, I'll say Sonar, and now I have three different tasks in Sonar Cloud that I can add, which is called prepare, run, and publish. I'll say add, add, add. I've added three different Sonar tasks out here right now, which is doing okay, which is now doing, let's say, okay, how do I let this go? Fine, let's see. So it's now doing a restore, build, and publish. Let me do one thing. I don't know why this is a little off. Let me reload this out. Let me try this out once again. Okay. So clone, I'll remove this out. I'll add a task here. Fine. I'll add a task here called Sonar, NAR Sonar. And here, three different tasks here, which is run, analyze, and publish. Three different tasks here that I'll add. Very importantly, there is an order in which you need to place this task. Your prepare analysis should always and always come after restore. After restore is where your prepare analyzer should come in. Reason being, when Sonar prepares, or when Sonar basically prepares the tool, it will first go into the restore task, understand what kind of a project that you're working. Are you working on .NET? Are you working on Python? Are you working on Java? Are you working on something? Depending upon that, it will load some, let's say, pre-existing test cases and then run this out here. And in prepare Sonar analysis, it's telling, okay, fine, I will prepare the Sonar analyzer, but I need something called Sonar Cloud service endpoint. Just click on this one. You have the 8 a.m. sonar connection that I've already configured. I'll say, okay, fine. This is what I need to use. Now it's asking name of the sonar organization. If your service connection is properly configured, just do a refresh. Click on this one, 8 a.m. organization, which is reflecting, which means that you're able to talk to sonar. Okay. Then it's asking for project key, project name. Now I don't remember, so I just go back and say my projects. I have one project out here called 8 a.m. project UACs 2. Here, if I just click on this and go into update key, I have the project key out here. Again, project key is a sensitive information. So instead of placing your project key here, place it in your variable section. Go to variables, say key. I'll place the key here and I'll lock this out. This now becomes a secret. I can lock it out. Now becomes a secret. What I can do is in place of key, I'll say dollar open close KEY key. This is what I now declared. Then I have the project name, same as the key. I'll place the project name out here as such. This is what I need to do. So I need to give the sonar connection endpoint that we configured. Then you need to give the name of the organization, project key and project name out here as such. Just scroll down. The run code analysis should always and always run after the code build, after building your code, because any analyzer that you use cannot run on a raw code, cannot run on a code that is in a high level format. The code has to be converted into the DLL, and only then you can run on top of it. So that's the reason I'm doing a build, and the publish can come anywhere. I'll put the publish after this sonar analyzer out here. So I'll say this is publish, and I'll say this is validation pipeline. And also I'll go into the triggers. I'll remove the continuous integration out here. The reason I'll remove the continuous integration is because this is not a continuous integration pipeline. This pipeline should only trigger whenever there's a pull request. So I'll remove this out. I'll say save. I'll say validation pipeline. So now if I go back into my pipelines, again, I just have one pipeline which is telling recent runs. Click on all. I have two pipelines right now. One is called first build pipeline. The other one is called as a validation pipeline again out here. One last thing that I need to do is just come back into Sonar project. Here, let's see, there is something called as a default branch, right? Branches. So by default, Sonar is configured to analyze the master branch of your project. But in my case, if I go into branches, the default branch is what? Develop 9.0. This is my default branch. So I'll say rename. I'll say develop 9.0 out here. If you don't do this, it will fail. So run analysis will fail because it will simply tell, you know what, the master branch, I did not find it. So I'm sorry, I cannot analyze this out here as such. So this is how you configure Sonar out here. And this is how I went ahead and created something called as a validation pipeline. These pipelines that are just in place to validate your code are called validation pipelines or gated pipelines or PR validation pipelines as well. We call them as gated build, PR build, or PR validation builds and all these things out here as such. So I created the build. I did not use it yet. I did not yet use it. Finally, I'll go into my branch policies. I'll go come here into branches. I'll say branch policies out here. In my branch policy, I have one simple policy called require minimum number of reviewers. I'll scroll down. I'll say add a build validation. I'll say pipeline is a validation pipeline. Trigger is automatic. Whenever the source branch is updated, I'll say yes, automatic. and I'll say the display name here is sonar. I'll say save. This is what I do have right now. I have one policy. The second policy now I've introduced is the branch validation. Now this is what happens. I am a developer. I'm creating a pull request. So I'll say feature. I'll say create this out. And inside this pull request, let me go ahead into the code. Let me say, sorry, let me say pages. Let me say index.html page. And I'll say testing sonar, something like this. Commit this out. I'll say sonar commit. And I'll create a pull request right now into the develop test sonar. Say create this out. Now see, the policy here is that someone from this PR approval group should come and approve this out. Fine, I am a PR approver group. Now I am a lead. I don't even see this. I just approve this out. I'm good with this. I just approve this out. Set to autocomplete. Delete it. Again, the merge has not happened. Reason being, you have one more check here telling what sonar should run. And now see, sonar is running. Validation pipeline automatically got triggered, and the branch policy or the pull request right now has triggered this out, telling there are two checks. If I click here, come here into the pipeline, now it's doing the same thing, restore, build and publish. But in between restore, build and publish, you have certain sonar tasks. Firstly, it's preparing the analyzer. So if you look at the prepare analysis out here, it's telling, okay, fine, .NET framework version identified. It's a .NET project because restore has done already. After that, it's telling, okay, fine, I'll download all the pre-existing tool for .NET. The project got built, DLL got produced. Finally, the code is now running. The code analyzer is now running. So what it's doing right now is that it's going into your feature branch, taking all your code in the feature branch, and then running out the analyzer. Now it's telling, okay, fine, this is now running. It will go ahead, run everything out here. It will scan all your code. And if your code is good, it'll say, okay, fine, the code is good. If your code is bad, it will fail out here. In my case, it's a simple code. So it will simply go ahead, run this out. And in the real-time environment, it will understand, okay, fine, if there are any issues with your code, what kind of issues, and you can go ahead and let's say, again, when you're using a sonar licensed version, you can also say what are the minimum bugs that are acceptable. Is this acceptable? What are the minimum security compliance which is acceptable, and etc. And if the sonar report doesn't meet the acceptance criteria, this will fail. And if this will fail, let's say I'll produce an artificial failure. I'll say cancel this out. I'll just cancel my sonar validation out here. While it's running, I cancel this out. So it says operation was cancelled, this failed and all that stuff. So now this has failed. If I go into my pull request, even if my reviewer or even if the reviewer has approved the code, the merge will not happen until this check is passed. And that check is your sonar check out there as such. So until this is passed, your pull request will not go ahead and get merged. The branch is not merged yet. So if I go back, branch still is there because I put a check option telling that, okay, fine, delete this branch after the merge is done. And neither that pull request went in. Test sonar did not even go in right now. Reason being, your pull request now failed. So until and unless you correct your code and then let's say requeue this out. So once you correct your code, you can again requeue this out. And once I requeue this out, what this is going to do is that now it's again going to go ahead and let's say put the sonar in queue, and this will now trigger the pipeline automatically. So I am not triggering this out again. If you look at the build, it is what PR automated, meaning a pull request is triggered. So far we have seen manual, scheduled, individual CI. Fourth one is a PR automated. These builds are called PR builds or PR validation builds out here. So if I click on this, go into sonar. Right now again it's following the entire procedure to run the analyzer, understanding all these things out here and etc. Let's see how it runs the analyzer. It will take like about 2 minutes to run the analyzer out there. So when the analyzer is run, We'll understand how the report got generated and what is there in our report, and try to also understand the same thing out there. Yes, any questions till here? Anyone? Any questions I can take till here? So I did a lot in this class, right? There are Sonar extension that I installed, Sonar projects that I created. Service connection is something that I established. I also created a new build pipeline called validation, put it inside the branch policy, and then also configured Sonar to analyze the develop branch of my repository. This is what I did on an end-to-end basis out here as such. So if I want to complete this out, so I did the service connection. Finally, in Azure Devops, I created a validation pipeline, included Sonar, added the pipeline on the branch policy. And then finally, when it is a PR, then that PR automatically triggered this particular Sonar out here. And in here, if you see this, it's saying code analysis is run. It took around 1 minute 7 seconds. And at the end of this one, it's telling execution success. You can also see the report here. If you click on this one, okay, let me go back. This is not the actual report. I'll say results here. Okay, it takes some time to update this out. It's fine. Let's go back into our main project out here. Develop branch has not been analyzed, and etc. Again, it'll take some time to generate that particular report. So once that report is existing out there, let me go back. So consumed. Once the report exists out there, it will take some time there. So again, extensions. It says quality gate passed. You can also click on the detailed report out here, and this is how your report looks like. Telling it okay, fine. Again, all these values will be populated. It will take Sonar about 5 or 6 minutes to populate all these values out here, and then the report will look something like this. So it's telling okay, fine, new one line, because there is only one line that got changed. Sonar is able to analyze that. Now Sonar is telling okay, fine, this is the feature. Quality gate is passed. No issues in your code. All are good. And that's how Sonar passed out there as such, giving you all these things as such in a form of a report out there as such. Yes. Any questions still here? Anyone? No. You just need one Sonar connection. That's good. One Sonar connection is good to analyze those projects out there. So one time you just configure Sonar, use that connection for all your repositories. We are good with that. Yes. Any more questions here? The lead of the development team. So what normally in a real-time scenario we do is that you are reaching out to your lead. Okay, you say what, I have a pull request. The lead will not even ask you what is the change. Just go ahead, approve that out. He'll leave it because he knows that Sonar is also, let's say, reviewing the code. If Sonar fails, the developer will get an email telling that your Sonar has failed. Please correct your code. So the developer will go there, correct the code, and then go ahead and, let's say, do this out. Sorry. Review is mandatory because that's the reason you put a policy there. The reason you have a manual approver out here is that there is something called Azure boards that we are going to talk about. There is something called, again, if you are a developer, if you want to change a code, you just cannot come here into the branch and change something that you want. Your Scrum Master needs to tell you that what you need to change the code. The Scrum Master needs to tell you in the form of an Azure board. So I as a developer, I as a lead will also check why did you change this, who told you to change this, and all that stuff. Only then I'll go ahead and approve this out there as such. Yes. Any more questions here? I'm sorry. Yes. Sonar Cloud also consumes the minutes. So if you look at this ran for about 1 minute 41 seconds. In a real time, this will be around 15 minutes or 16 minutes or something. It can go up to that because depending upon your code out there. Yes, number of minutes will also get consumed. That's the reason we go for a self-hosted agent. Self-hosted agent, there are unlimited minutes that you get. So you don't have to worry about, okay, fine, my minutes are getting over and all that stuff. But one thing that I want to add is that, see, when you want to run a Sonar, okay, I'll just edit this pipeline. See, as and when I added a Sonar, I added this Sonar, go into the agent job, there is something called Java exists. For you to run a sonar, you need Java to be pre-existing on a particular machine. Hosted machines by default come installed with Java because Microsoft in the backend does that. In your case, if you want to run it on your own pool, make sure that you go inside that pool, go inside that machine, install Java version 10, install Java, restart it, and then you go ahead and let's say configure this out. So this is one of the prerequisite if you are using a self-hosted machine out here. If you don't do that, it will simply fail telling Java is not installed. Please go ahead install Java, only then again run. Mhm. Again, in I just put it same. You can have the project name and you should have the project name and project key as different. I just put it as same because just I was just going through the demo and I was just putting it same out there. But again, if you are not comfortable with that, update key, change the key. You can put any key out here, right? Change the key out there. Just say Microsoft 001, say update, say update. Again, if you update it here, also update it on your pipeline because your pipeline is using the key variables. And if you go here, instead of telling it is, if I unlock this, right? If I unlock this out, I won't be able to see the key. So place a new key, this out, say updated sonar key. Now you do not have to change it in the task because the task is using the same variable. The variable got changed. So you don't have to, let's say, change your pipeline out there as such. Yes, any questions till here? Anyone? Any questions that I can take till here?
Hi, Kiran.
Good, please.
Is it same for all kind of projects like PHP, Ruby, something, Node.js?
Yes,
Sonar is
it's same
common?
for all. I'm sorry, can you come again, please?
Yes, Sonar is common for all the projects.
Sonar is common for all the projects. The way you configure Sonar is common. Sonar is normally configured or Sonar is normally put in place after the project restore. That's the reason we put Sonar analysis after the project restore. So once your project restores, Sonar will understand what kind of a project that you're doing. Is it, let's say, .NET? Is it Java? Is it Python, C Sharp, Golang, whatever it is? And depending upon that, Sonar will load pre-existing tools to analyze this out there. So the configuration of Sonar is common for across all the projects. What exactly does Sonar analyze in the code? Does it try to catch syntaxes or try to catch exceptions? It tries to catch both syntaxes, exceptions, security vulnerabilities, meaning if you're putting any passwords and etc., it will be, let's say, flagged out as a security issue. So mostly it looks for, let's say, the number of lines of the code. Is there any exceptions or is there any, let's say, any syntax errors in the code? Can you do anything better? Is there any exception in the code? Can you do anything better out there? And also, is there any passwords in the code that you're using? And that will all be, let's say, configured, or that will all be, let's say, flagged out as a security concern out there. So if you look at here, if you look at this one into the Sonar reporting, again, the develop branch has not been analyzed. That's what it tells. So if I just go here, I have a feature pull request. Here it's telling, is there any maintainability issues? Meaning, are there any syntax issues in your code? Are there any duplicate lines in your code? Is there any security review? Like, are you putting any passwords and etc.? Is there any vulnerability? Like, are there any bugs and etc.? And all these things is something that they flag out here as such. Yes, any more questions here, guys? I'm sorry? Is to configure and put in Sonar Cloud out here. Issues that are coming from that one, that's a developer to, let's say, look into, because issues in the Sonar are because of, let's say, code quality issues and all that stuff. So you can give this report to a developer telling that this is your report, you can check this out, and a developer can go ahead, understand what are the issues here, and then correct those out as such. Yes, they'll automatically be an email every time. Let's say, again, you do not have to really configure that out. If I go in my Gmail out here, right, every time a build is success or every time, let's say, a build is failed, I'll have an automated email automatically getting triggered to my DL. So this is something that I did not configure. Azure Devops by default comes with this. So again, if a build is succeeded also, you can configure it out here as such. Yes, any more questions here? Code smell is nothing but issues in your code. That's it. It's just like issues in your code that can in the future break your thing out here. Again, if you'll just look at this one, in this one, let's say, and see what are code smells. Code smell that is confusing and difficult to maintain. Syntaxes that are difficult to maintain. All these things which can break in future. Yes. Any more questions here? Okay. And in tomorrow's session, we'll cover out more things in the build policies, like what are Azure boards? What do you mean by merges? Different types of merges like squash, rebase, and all these things. So this is something that we look at. And then we'll move into continuous deliveries or continuous deployment. So going into continuous delivery, we'll also have to, let's say, deal with something called infrastructure as a code, like using PowerShell or using ARM templates. How do you go ahead and, let's say, create your infrastructure using a DevOps pipeline? I'm not even going to touch the portal. I'm going to use our DevOps pipeline now to create my resource groups, create my web apps, create my databases, and all these things out here. And then the delivery of your code. So infrastructure as a code, delivery of your code is something that we're going to see. And the entire next week will be covered with CD. So the entire next week would be CD. And after doing the CD, because in a CD, meaning continuous delivery pipeline, we'll do something like web app and a database. And at the end of the CD, we'll also look into application insights, continuous monitoring using, let's say, Azure DevOps. So I'll have to introduce application insights any which ways. That's the reason I do not take a weekend and cover application insights. I'll have to do it any which ways using DevOps out there. So I'll cover AI application insights as a part of DevOps out there as such. Yes. Any more questions here? So the path is something like this. The next week would predominantly be something like this. So let me open the calendar. So the next week is predominantly going to be continuous delivery. I'll also try taking, let's say, a Saturday and a Sunday out there. Reason being, I might not be available on, sorry, this is September, right? Yeah. I might not be available on the 90th and 19th and the 20th. These are the 2 days basically that I need to travel. So I might not be available in these 2 days. So we'll cover it on the weekends out there. So this week is predominantly going to be, let's say, releases, continuous deployment. After that, by the end of this week, we'll also be looking into YAML syntaxing. What is YAML? How do you write YAML code and all that stuff? After that, from 12th to 16th, almost this entire week, I'll be doing Terraforms, something like Terraforms and etc. And in the coming week, which is, let's say, on 20th, again I'll be back in town by 10 a.m. in the morning. So I'll try to, let's say, adjust a session in the afternoon or in the evening or something like that. So if that's not possible, then I'll just take the entire weekend out there. So this entire week is going to be on Dockers, and then the following would be on Kubernetes out there. So that's what is the progress that we are going to make. So yes, any questions there? Anyone? Any questions there? Again, you do not really have to use a git command because VS Code is just like, let's say, a proxy towards your git commands out there. But yes, for the interview perspective, you can just go ahead, look at the git syntaxes. You don't really have to until and unless you're working on a Linux operating system. Completely Linux, then yes, you'll have to do with your commands only. All right, so that's it from mine, guys. Have a good day ahead, and we'll meet tomorrow. Thank you.